Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back once again with the Renegade Master. I'm your Dreadlock caster RedRipz, and we're here today for CasualCraft episode 56, is it? Yeah, 56 part 2, I do believe, in this best of 3 series between Snake and Grit. Now, here in the bottom left hand corner, today's brother from another mother on Whirlwind LE, it is the Red Protoss player, Snake! Yeah, Metal Gear Solid. Woo! Who doesn't love Metal Gear Solid? And in the bottom right-hand corner, today's sister, from another mister, it's the legendary it's the legendary Blue Zerg player, Grit. Fist pump for Grit, who went 1-0 down in the first game, with Snake taking that victory quite comfortably. After some big Zergling pressures, there was essentially the Void Rays appeared for Snake, and he just sort of dominated after that point. Really, I mean, it wasn't really domination so much as just a kind of Void Rays doing Void Ray things, and Hydra's not being quite good enough to deal with it in the numbers that Grit had. So with that in mind, we're going to see what goes on in game number 2 here on Whirlwind LE. This is a pretty big map, really. There's a huge rush distance on this map, with it basically just being so absolutely massive. If I can try and zoom out a chunk, can we? I always forget which is the super zoom. That's the spending tab. There's the super zoom out. So yeah, all this space in the middle, I don't know if you can quite take all that in at the speed that I'm moving it at, but yeah, there's a lot of space in the middle of this map to so like rushes aren't quite as common here, with the rush distance being so long. You tend to sort of go slightly more macro play. Not always the best thing to see, but obviously you can defend this high ground here quite comfortably, and then you've got the choice of the third base up on the right or fourth base up on the left there, very much depending on where your opponent is. So neither player gonna see their opponent straight away. I think Snake is actually, yeah, his probe's going to be going down to the bottom right hand corner, so he's going to find his opponent slightly sooner than Grit will. Grit, meanwhile, is going to be heading off to the top right with his Overlord, which is fairly sensible. However, he's actually not going to find anything at all there with that. So with that in mind, Snake's going to find his opponent first. I think if Grit was watching, he should be able to tell that his opponent was in the bottom left. Although actually, if he's missed that, then there's no real way of knowing. Snake now finding his opponent, going to see this this relative, well, not really an early spawning pool. I do believe that was down on 15 with an extractor just behind it, and we should be seeing an expansion here out of Grit pretty soon, once we've got this extractor populated as well. Although actually he's not really gone for that yet. He's what's he doing? We've got the drone coming out here at the front. What are you? Not quite sure what's going on there, but we've got the Zergling speed starting up. No 2-base coming out here, interestingly enough, and Snake's going to notice this pretty quickly. He does have the his Zergling on the his drone on the not his drone. God damn it! What is wrong with me today? He's got his probe on the patrol command, so he's going to be wandering back and forward around there, looking for this second base, which is actually at this rate not going to be there. I'm wondering if we're going to see a, despite my reservations about this being a rush map, I'm wondering if we're going to see a rush here out of Grit. We've got the 4 Zerglings moving down at the low ground. Still no sign of a second base here yet for Grit. Although actually with the drone coming down now, it looks like, yeah, those Zerglings are just going to chase that off. We're going to see the drone coming down, and that second base, it's going to be a little bit late, but it is there. Meanwhile, over at Snake's base, got the over at Snake's base, we've got the 2 gas down straight away. We've got the Gateway Cybernetics at the front as well, with the Warp Gate research coming on in. Same sort of plan as last time for Snake, really. He knows what he's doing. He's quite happy with that. We're going to be getting plenty of gas out as well, I imagine, so we might see maybe some early tech or something like that. I'd be interested to see. However, Grit, meanwhile, has got his second base down on the natural, and will be just moving slightly ahead in economy in that respect, as it was earlier than his Protoss opponent. So with that in mind, we're going to be seeing the next wave of injects coming off. We're not going to be mining any more gas, so there's no early layer tech here out of Grit. And the rush that I feared that could be happening isn't happening, because with the second base down, I think he might even, let's see what he does here. So we've got 4 Lings running at the front, Zergling speed finished now. They're going to come and basically find the Zealot and have to leave pretty quickly. But at least he knows where his opponent is now, although actually they're not going to be allowed to leave, and that was a really nice force field, actually. Yes, absolutely, Snake. Yeah, nice job keeping the Lings up there to kill them all. It does mean you can't get your probe down at the low ground straight away to get the Nexus up, interestingly enough. Meanwhile, Grit's second base will be finishing up here. He's going to be getting another extractor down here as well, so I think he might be getting some reds. Actually, maybe some roaches out pretty soon, like a swell of roaches or something pretty soon, or possibly just diving straight into the tech, or maybe, as I say, going for that layer tech or something like that. We'll have to wait and see what he plans on doing. We're going to see basically his second base is going to start getting fully saturated as soon as possible. and hopefully this should be leading to some good times. So with my phone going off in the background, I'm just going to ignore that completely, and we're going to move on back to Snake's second base here, where we're going to see the natural here now coming down, just starting to build there, and he's going to be generally moving to move out, take this high ground position here, and just defend this ramp from the inevitable onslaught of Zerglings. Now, meanwhile, Grit, get the spine crawler down in a second. This is perhaps unnecessary, but a pretty safe thing to be doing. Any sort of random zealots that come wandering in, that's going to help deal with. It's just good to have something there to deal with run-bys, and it's something that you can easily forget to do as Zerg. You just you almost don't naturally build base defenses because you're too busy building units. Whereas a lot of like Terrans now naturally build anti-air pretty much, it seems, and like Protoss will naturally build a couple of cannons behind a front wall and stuff like that. Whereas Zergs seem to do that a lot less. I mean, yeah, don't get me wrong. Like you see the sort of the huge transition into mass spore crawlers and spine crawlers when they're sort of the late game heavy. That's sort of the early game heavy droning's over, and you've got too many drones for the number of bases you've got. You often see a lot of base defenses coming out and stuff out of Zerg players, but unless it's that sort of situation or there's actually some actual pressure, it's sort of rare to see it really. Although we are getting spore crawlers out in the mineral lines here, which I think is really sensible. I like spore crawlers in every mineral line when I'm playing sort of safely, mostly just because of the vision, because there's inevitably going to be some DTs wandering in. That's a constant ball ache, and actually I think, yeah, we're actually going to miss that inject there. So that was quite unfortunate there for Grit, having his queen chase that hallucinated phoenix away, which was basically just for scouting information. He's actually missing injects for that. So actually some really excellent, subtle economic damage there out of Snake. I do like that. Meanwhile, Grit's going to be getting his upgrades, going for the missile attack upgrade again, so I think we'll be seeing the Roach Hydra build here out of him again. Obviously he's got his early layer up like I was talking about there, and I think we must have the Hydra. Yeah, there's the Hydrogen. So yeah, typical Roach Hydra composition. He's getting them out slightly early this time. I think we might be seeing some sort of two-base, not necessarily all in, but very sort of straight up play here, like not sitting back and macroing and trying to play risky with as few units as possible. I think he's going to get a swell of units out before long and go for it. Just sort of, that's just the feeling I get. Like as a Zerg player, well, I was going to say as a Zerg player, I would have gone for third base by now. Was I not doing that? There's the third base! Woo! So yeah, Ross is absolutely wrong. Yeah, I'm not supposed to admit fault, but was a little bit wrong there, but it's all good. It's all good. It doesn't really matter. As at the end of the day, I'm just trying to guess what he's doing by his composition, and at this point, difficult to sort of tell. He's gone for the third base down. That's all very nice now, and still, to be honest, he could just swell some units and go in with it. I'm not convinced that he will now that he's put that third down. He does look like he's going to try and play for the longer game, but it still wouldn't surprise me, to be honest. I was told there was some interesting decision making in these games, so I'm holding out the hope for some total madness, because that's absolutely my favourite type of StarCraft. Like, well, second maybe to watching sort of innovation Tasia games where you're getting the most high level possible, everything is unbelievable, 100 drops a minute sort of play. Outside of that, I just love funky play. That's why I like watching TLO so much, for example, because he just does weird stuff. And like when he was playing Terran, for example, like that, like back in the day, that was some really strange stuff. And I remember watching him do this Nidus and Queens in with drones to build like a spine crawler like thing that he had going on. Like this was in Wings of Liberty though. This was before you had swarm hosts and stuff, which you could just sort of churn out and put amongst that, and that would work really well. Yeah, so honestly, some of his plays totally bizarre. If you're not familiar with him, get familiar with TLO, because man, he's got some really crazy plays. He's not necessarily the most tournament successful player. Like, you don't see him going to the GSL and taking the GSL or anything like that. But he's a solid player and he's fun to watch, which is the most important thing I always think. So we're going to see movement out of Grit here. He's actually undersupplied there at the moment. You could do some more overlords really. I just noticed that. Got the 4 more overlords down. And with a Spire coming out behind this now. This is different from the last game, which is a good thing. As basically, that's kind of one of the things that I felt he could have done with really. A lot of Mutalisks happily would have gone through that last army. Although actually, to be fair, getting a lot of Mutalisks often is the problem, as you don't often get that far. Now, meanwhile, we've seen the Colossus out of Snake here, and actually we're going to see the push-up from Grit here on the high ground. The Colossus already being out with a hallucinated one as well, and Grit's going to happily just take down a building and push and remove himself there. Funnily enough, that single Zealot holding up the entire ground army there of Snake, stopping them from moving out, was pretty comical there. I'm going to see another gateway there, I'd imagine, and Grit's decided to move back, not got enough stuff enough to do with double Colossus yet, he says, not, I guess, realising that one of them was hallucinated. And actually, there's, yeah, with third and more Colossi coming out, and obviously they've been continually pumped out. We've just got the Observer coming out now. We're going to see more Colossus, I imagine, before the day is done, as that seems to be the general composition that Snake's going to go for here. The usual sort of Protossy Death Ball stuff, which actually very nicely deals with the pretty much anything on the ground that Zergs go for, really. I mean, they basically the only thing, like, Colossus are really good against Hydras, and especially Roach Hydras. Like, yeah, they're very strong. So it's going to be good. Meanwhile, Snake going for third base. I like the fact that both players are taking this much more as a macro game, in a sense to speak. Just in the sense that they've both actually gone straight for third bases this time. I mean, they were slightly delayed perhaps, but it's, you know, it's all in terms of safety. In terms of safety, it was a good job. And this cannot be the time for me to get hiccups now. I'm just talking myself to death here. Oh, god damn it. Well, I timed these hiccups perfectly. You'll have to excuse my blah, blah every 5 minutes. But I sound a little bit like an overlord sometimes when I hiccup. Blah, 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 blah. So, with that, and with me saying with that too much as well, Snake's gathering his shit together. He's got the Corruptors out now on top of this. Actually not going for any Mutalisks at all, just straight into the Corruptors, which will be comfortably targeting down these two Colossi before too long. Meanwhile, this ground army of Zealots, as long as they're engaging with the Roaches and the Hydras are behind them, should be okay. However, if the Zealots can get in with the Hydras, gonna be an issue, because well, Zealots just survive so long, and just they deal enough damage to just eat through the rubbishness of Hydra's defences. Yeah, it's a little bit of an issue there for Grit if you can't get the right sort of engagement. But at this point, I do feel like Snake should be coming out on top here. I mean, he does have a lot of Zealots there, and there's 3 Colossi out with another one building as well. Considering he's got 2 fully saturated bases, this game, like that one's on 24 probes there, so I quite like to see half of those go up here, really. I think he's in a better position than Grit, despite Grit's like advantage in terms of supply. If we just have a quick look at this as the engagement starts. Yeah, a lot of that supply is in Roaches there. We've got nearly 70 odd supply in Roaches, which just aren't really the right thing to deal with this. And that's the problem with Roaches. Roaches are really good, but they take up a lot of supply for what they actually do. But actually, yeah, with the Corruptors on top of that, both Colossi were able to fall pretty quickly there. And even though Grit was engaging up on the high ground, and there's actually quite a big surround there for Snake, just the superior numbers, I think, helped him there, and he's actually able to push through. Having gone for the 2 attack upgrades as well, compared to the 1 attack, 1 defense upgrades of Snake, he does have the advantage in terms of DPS, although he will be losing his troops slightly quicker. But with the Corruptors on top, just perfectly dealing with the Colossi, there's not really that much that Snake could have done there to stop that number of Corruptors there, really, because, well, as you might well know, Stalkers just don't go through Corruptors anything like as quick as would be necessary to stop them taking out all those Colossi. So with that in mind, it does look like Grit is going to be pushed away here. He did do a lot of damage, took out the vast majority of Snake's army, and he will be able to remax quicker. As you can see here, he already has a force cut together across the middle of the map. He's got not 3 fully mining bases, but he's working on 3 fully mining bases. I imagine we'll be looking to take a 4th before too long, and should just generally be moving in pretty quickly here. Although, to be honest, I mean, I think with a perhaps slightly better micro, Snake might have come off slightly better in that, but he had a really good, like, the flank down the bottom with the Zealots was good, and that helped him clear up what was left of the army. And at this point, really, the only thing that's stopping him, or the only thing that stopped him winning that battle was the Corruptors on top that took out the Colossi. So we're going to have to wait and see. He's not building any more Colossi, so I think with the Templar Archives coming down, we're just generally going to be seeing a move into Storm here. And obviously with the Dark Shrine as well there, we'll probably see some DTs on the ground as well. Although with the Overseer up and the obviously with Spore Crawlers in each one of these bases, in the main base and the second there, they're not going to be that effective against these first 2 mining bases. Although the third and now coming down 4th base of Grit here might be slightly different, so we'll have to wait and see what happens. And that's quite a nice engagement there, straight away out of Snake, just getting the force fields across the bottom of the map, picking off a few of the Roaches at the front. Nothing too much. Corruptors now proving completely useless. There's no Colossus whatsoever. Colossus whatsoever. And now, in fact, Grit's just going to push up into this main base. He's actually going to take out this forge before the ground weapons level 2 finishes, and actually get a really good engagement there as a result, because the rest of the Roaches turned up at just the right time. They're getting a really nice concave out for Grit there. And with 2 more force fields coming down here, he's like Snake's nicely controlling the flow of troops here. And this is a really cool back and forward game. I mean, like I know Snake's obviously behind. He's got a huge supply difference, being 80 supply supply under now, having lost so many troops and not being able to quite get the troops out as quickly as Grit could again. It was quite a difficult situation there for Snake, and I think he is actually going to keep falling behind here. I don't know if there's that much he can really do against this many roaches, despite the advantage that he had with the Colossi. Those Corruptors were a really clever move out of Grit, coming in at just the right time to stop the Colossi, and this number of roaches is going to go through these forces, and I don't think he's absolutely GG being thrown out there by Snake. I was just going to say, I don't think that that Snake can win this now. And, well, there we are. GG is up and complete. So with that 1-1 now here for these players, we're going to be moving into Game 3. And, yeah, that's another interesting game there. So basically that time Grit just got a lot more troops out a lot earlier, got his third base behind it, stuck down the Spire and built a few of the Corruptors. And that basically, the Corruptors turning up at just the right time to take out the Colossi. It's pretty much what won him the game there. Just constant remaxing behind that with more and more roaches to push forward. Great positioning, great play, and good concaves from both players, actually. I really enjoyed the engagements from both players there. There were some lovely force fields on this ramp here, and the engagement where the Zealots came down this ramp and just took on the flank here, while Snake's other troops pushed down this ramp here. In that initial engagement, although Grit then went on to win the game, that was a really nice sort of bit of the engagement for Snake there. I really liked what he was doing, and it was just sort of unfortunate that he couldn't keep the Colossi alive because of these Corruptors that were on top. Although, actually, to be honest, with the way that actually worked out, with Grit deciding to move up this ramp here into this base, he put Snake in such a difficult position that really that was what won him the game. And I think, to be honest, Snake's army was just out of place on this high ground here. You almost have to defend this area here rather than sitting on the high ground, because then, well, the player just chooses which one that you're not in and just goes in there. And then suddenly he's the one with the high ground position. So, yeah, difficult position for Snake there, but not really an issue. So, well, 1-1, and we're going to be moving on to Game 3 now. So thanks all once again for watching, and like, comment, subscribe, all the usual banter. I've been RedRipz, and this is CasualCraft episode 56 part 2. So we'll go into part 3 in a second. I'm going to try and talk slower in the next game, because I've just realised quite how many words a minute are coming out of my mouth. So yeah, thanks for watching, and GG both players. Cheers.